Happy Thursday. You guys ready for chapter 6, Racing in the Rain? Her name was Eve, and at first I resented how she changed our lives. I resented the attention Denny paid to her small hands and her slender body, the way he gazed into her soft green eyes which peered out from her stylish strands of straight blonde hair. Did I envy her engaging smile? Perhaps I did, for she was a person unlike me. She was well-groomed, unlike me. She was everything I wasn't. I went for extended periods without a haircut or a bath. For instance, she bathed every day and had a special person do something else but color her hair. My nails grew too long and scratched the wood floor. She frequently attended to her nails with sticks and clippers and polishes to make sure they were the proper shape and size. Her attention to every detail of her appearance was reflected in her personality as well. She was an incredible organizer, constantly making lists and jotting down notes of things to be done. Our weekends would fill with trips to the Home Depot or waiting in line at the disposal and recycling station in Georgetown. I didn't like painting rooms and fixing doorknobs and washing screens, but Denny liked it, apparently because she gave him more to do, the more quickly he completed his tasks. Then he collected his reward, which usually included a lot of nuzzling and kissing. Soon after she moved into our apartment, they were married in a small wedding ceremony. I attended along with a group of their closest friends and Eve's immediate family. Denny didn't have any brothers or sisters to invite and explained his parents' absence simply by saying they didn't travel well. The wedding took place at a charming little beach cottage on Whidbey Island. Eve's parents made it clear to all involved that the house was owned by close friends of theirs. I was allowed to participate only under strict rules. I was not to roam freely on the beach, as I might track sand into the expensive mahogany floors. And I was forced to do my business in a very specific location next to the recycling containers. Upon our return to Whidbey, I noticed that Eve moved through our apartment with a greater sense of ownership. She was much bolder in her actions to move or replace things, towels, linens, and even furniture. She had entered our lives and changed everything around. And yet, while I was unhappy with her intrusion, there was something about her that prevented me from being really angry with her. I believe that thing was her swollen belly. True, I was very jealous of the attention Eve lavished on her unborn baby, but looking back, I realized I had never given her a reason to give that same attention to me. Perhaps that is my regret. I loved how she was when she was pregnant, and yet I knew I could never be the source of her affection in that way because I could never be her child. She devoted herself to the baby before it was even born. She touched it regularly through her tightly stretched skin. She sang to it and danced with it to music she played on the stereo. She learned to make it move around by drinking orange juice, which she did frequently. She once asked if I wanted to know what it felt like, and I did. So I held my face against her belly, and after she had drunk the juice, and I felt it move. It was hard for me to imagine exactly what was going on behind the magic curtain, but I knew that what was inside of her was separate from her and had a will of its own. I admire females, the life makers. It must be amazing to have a body that can carry an entire creature inside. I mean, other than a tapeworm, which I've had. That doesn't count, really. The life that Eve had inside of her was something she had made. She and Denny had made it together. I wished at the time the baby would look like me. I remember the day the baby arrived. I had just reached adulthood, 2 years by calendar count. Denny was in Daytona, Florida for the drive of his career. He had spent the entire year contacting sponsors, begging, pleading, and hustling. One day he got lucky and found the right person in the right hotel lobby to say, "You've got guts, son. Call me tomorrow." Thus, he found his long-sought sponsor dollars and was able to buy a seat in a Porsche 993 for the 24-hour race at Daytona. Endurance racing is not for the meek. 4 drivers each spend 6 hours behind the wheel of a loud, powerful race car, in an exercise in determination. The 24 hours of Daytona is as unpredictable as it is exciting. That Denny was presented with the chance to drive it in the same year that his daughter would be born was one of those coincidences that was open to interpretation. Eve was dismayed by the unfortunate timing of the events. Denny celebrated the great opportunity and the feeling that he had everything he could possibly ask for. Still, the timing was off. On the day of the race, Eve felt the contractions and called the midwives. They came and invaded our home and quickly took charge. Later that evening, as Denny was driving at Daytona, Eve stood bent over the bed with two round ladies who helped her by holding her arms. Then, with a monstrous bellow that seemed to last an hour, out squirted a little wet blob that wriggled spastically and then cried out. The ladies helped Eve into her bed and rested the tiny little purple thing on her chest until the babies was able to feed. "Could I have a minute alone?" Eve started. "Of course," one of the ladies said, moving to the door. "Come with us, puppy," the other lady said to me on her way out. "No," Eve stopped them. "He can stay." "I can stay?" Despite myself, I felt proud to be included in Eve's inner circle. The two ladies bustled off, and I watched in fascination as Eve suckled her new babe. After a few minutes, my attention drifted off from the baby's first meal to Eve's face, and I saw that she was crying, and I wondered why. She let her free hand dangle to the bedside, her fingers near my muzzle. I hesitated. I didn't want to presume she was beckoning me, but then her fingers wiggled, and her eyes caught mine, and I knew she was calling me. I bumped her face with my nose. She lifted her fingers to the crown of my head and scratched, still crying, her baby still nursing. "I know I told him to go," she said to me, referring to Denny. "I know that I insisted he go. I know," tears ran down her cheeks, "but I so wish he was here." I had no idea what to do, but I knew not to move. She needed me here. "Will you promise to always protect her?" she asked. She wasn't asking me. She was asking Denny, and I was merely Denny's substitute. Still, I felt the obligation. I understood that, as a dog, I could never be as connected as I truly desired. Yet, I realized at that moment I could be something else. I could provide something of need to the people around me. I could comfort Eve when Denny was away. I could protect Eve's baby. And while I would always want more, in a sense, I found a place to begin. The next day, Denny came home from Daytona, Florida, unhappy. His mood immediately changed when he held his little girl, whom they named Zoe, not after me, but after Eve's grandmother. "Did you see my tiny little angel ends?" he asked me. Did I see her? I practically birthed her. Denny was very careful around Eve's parents. Maxwell and Trish had been in the house since Zoe was born, taking care of their daughter and their new baby granddaughter. I began calling them the twins because they looked very much alike. They had the same shade of dyed hair, plus they always wore matching outfits, khaki pants or polyester slacks with sweaters or polo shirts. When one of them wore sunglasses, the other did too. The same with Bermuda shorts and tall socks pulled up to their knees, and because they both smelled of chemicals, plastics, and hair products. From the moment they arrived, the twins had been criticizing Eve for having her baby at home. They told her she was endangering her baby's welfare, and in these modern times it was irresponsible to give birth anywhere but in the best of all hospitals with the most expensive of all doctors. Eve tried to explain to them that statistics show exactly the opposite was true for a healthy mother. Also, that any signs of distress would have been recognized early by her experienced teams of midwives. But the twins didn't understand. Fortunately for Eve, Denny's arrival meant the twins could turn their attention away from their faults and focus on his. As they stood in the kitchen, Denny told Maxwell about the disappointing results of the race at Daytona. "That's a lot of bad luck," the male twin said to Denny as they stood in the kitchen. Maxwell was gloating. I could hear it in his voice. "Did you get any of your money back?" Trish asked. Denny was very unhappy, and I wasn't sure why until Mike came over later that night and he and Denny opened their beers together. It turned out that Denny had been going to take the third stunt driving at Daytona. The car had been running well, hoping everything was going great. They were in second place, and Denny would easily take the lead as the sunlight faded and the night driving began, until the guys who had the second turn drive slammed the car into the wall on turn 6. He crashed it when a Daytona prototype, a much faster car, was overtaking. First rule of racing, never move aside to let someone pass. Make him pass you. But the driver on Denny's team moved over and he hit a bad patch on the track. When he did, the rear end snapped off and he plowed into the wall at a pretty close to top speed. The car shattered into a million little pieces. The driver wasn't hurt, but the race was over for the team. And Denny, who had spent a year working for this moment, found himself standing by the side of the racetrack watching the opportunity of his lifetime get dragged away by a tow truck. He hadn't had a chance to sit in it for a single racing lap. And you don't get any of your money back, Mike said after Denny was finishing telling his story. I don't care about any of that, Denny said. I should have been here. The baby came early. You can't know what's going to happen before it happens. Yes, I can, Denny said. If I'm any good, I can. Anyway, Mike said, lifting his bottle to Zoe. To Zoe, Denny echoed. To Zoe, I said to myself, whom I will always protect. See you tomorrow for Chapter 7.